What is going on, everybody? So earlier today, I went on Bleacher Report and we kind of broke down kind of a pretty cool topic of conversation, as you guys can see. So I wanted to share that stream with you guys here. But first, I wanted to let you guys know that my new show is officially starting next week. Okay, guys, it is going to be Club Jaguar. It's going to come on every single Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, all the way from Wednesday to the very end of the season. Myself, Jordan from Generation Jaguar, and Jason from Jaguars United. We're going to be live every single Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So definitely get your notification bells on. And I really hope to see you guys there, because while I haven't been very active on this channel video-wise, I've actually been very active when it comes to setting things up to make this really an awesome show. So I'm really hoping that this can really elevate this channel, and it can also give you guys an awesome viewing experience and really provide something fun to Jaguar fans that is not really out there on the landscape right now. So with all that said, let's get into my stream on Bleacher Report. And what is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Bleacher Report app. Look, it is July 12th, 2024, and as we all know, we are in the notorious dead period where, look, there's not really much going on right now. However, in this time, we get to kind of go through some kind of abstract and crazy topics to really speak about. And today we have just that, guys. We're going to go back in time and basically build an all-time Jaguars roster, okay? If you got to pick one player at each position for the Jaguars historically, we're going to build out the perfect 11-man offense and 11-man defense, as well as we'll pick a couple of special teamers too, okay? And with this one, I'm going to go ahead and use PowerPoint. Look, I know you guys only thought PowerPoints were for high school presentations and timeshare presentations, but no, we're bringing it right here to Bleacher Report. So it's going to be a lot of fun, but we got a lot of players to go through, okay? So we're just going to go ahead and get started. So the first off, we are going to start with offense. And look, quarterback, I'm taking Trevor Lawrence. Now, I know probably really the big debate here is between whether you want a Mark Brunell or a Trevor Lawrence. But for me with this one, I'm probably going more for upside. I mean, we've only seen 3 years out of Trevor Lawrence, but, we know the upside there is like tremendous with a player like him. So, with this one, I think that Trevor Lawrence only has his best football ahead of him, and I think one day Trevor Lawrence will be in the pride of the Jaguars, and I do think that he will one day lead the Jaguars to a Super Bowl. So, with Trevor Lawrence, he's got everything I want in the quarterback. Now I'm just really excited that we get to see so much more of Trevor Lawrence in the years in the future, especially with the new contract extension. So at quarterback, I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence. Now, at running back, we're going to keep going chalky here. I mean, Fred Taylor is, one of the greatest players ever for the Jaguars. When people do their all-time Jaguars list, Fred Taylor is usually either at number 1 or 2, okay? You never really see him at number 3. He's a running back that, has 11,695 total yards as well as 66 touchdowns. He retired with 4.6 yards per carry. Just, his speed, agility, and, everything that he brought to the Jaguars offense during his time for the Jaguars was just incredible. And now people are kind of campaigning for Trevor Lawrence to be put into the NFL Hall of Fame, or where they're campaigning Fred Taylor to be put into the NFL Hall of Fame, which one day I do think it will happen. Of course, he has his own podcast, which is kind of getting his name out there. But yeah, I think Fred Taylor, for me, is going to be my running back. And of course, honorable mention to the great Maurice Jones-Drew as well. But I think we can all kind of agree that Fred Taylor will edge him out just a little bit. Now, next up, I have wide receiver. So I have 2 wide receivers, okay? I have Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardell. Look, these 2 guys are thunder and lightning, a part of the, some of the best Jaguar teams out there. The Jimmy Smith is in the pride of the Jaguars, and he was an absolute beast for us. 862 catches, 12,287 yards, and 67 touchdowns. Now, it feels like right now people are kind of focusing on getting a Fred Taylor into the Hall of Fame. But once that happens, I think next up, everybody's going to be campaigning for, Jimmy Smith to really get in. And, of course, you have Keenan McCardell as well. He's a guy that, Jaguars got through free agency from the San Diego Chargers. 499 receptions for the Jags with 6,393 yards and 30 touchdowns. He is a player that the Jaguars, that Jimmy Smith would not have been the same player without Keenan McCardell, and of course McCardell would not have been the same player without a Jimmy Smith. So these two guys really complement each other very, very well, and there's no doubt that both these guys will be in my offense in my starting 11. And one guy honorable mention would probably be like a 2015 version of Allen Robinson. He got 1,400 yards. Dude was a complete beast. But when it comes to longevity and when it comes to consistency, you got to take a Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardell. Now, next up, this is probably where the hot takes will start to come in, okay? We have tight end Marcedes Lewis. Now, Marcedes Lewis for a long time was the best blocking tight end in the NFL. Look, this guy is still playing. He is 40 years old, and he is still playing football at tight end, which is very rare. I mean, you see this out of quarterbacks. You see this out of kickers. You don't really see this very often out of, players that like are tight ends that are, that are catching the ball downfield and that are blocking for players. So with him, he played actually 12 seasons for the Jaguars, 5 for the Packers, and 2 for the Bears. So, he's a first-round pick in the 2006 NFL draft. And I believe not only is he the only first-rounder still playing from that draft, he is the only player, I believe, still active from that draft. Now, I could be wrong on that. But, yeah, it's a crazy, crazy history there. And, of course, he was drafted in the same exact draft as Maurice Jones-Drew. And it feels like Maurice Jones-Drew retired forever ago, okay? So, yeah, we have Marcedes Lewis coming as my first tight end. Now, here's where it gets a little bit edgy. Let me know, but I'm going with today's NFL, and I'm going to take Evan Ingram. Okay, Evan Ingram will edge out Kyle Brady for me. Now, for me, I think Marcedes Lewis and Evan Ingram just complement each other really, really perfectly. Of course, Evan Ingram, he was a first-round pick for the New York Giants, and he was kind of widely considered a bust. Okay, people were saying that the guy can't catch, the guy was a bust, the guy's always hurt, but he came to the Jaguars and completely different player, okay? Last year, he was one of 8 tight ends in NFL history to ever finish a season with over 100 receptions. He is also just completely reviving his career with the Jaguars. He signed an extension right after signing a franchise tag for the Jaguars in 2023, so he is definitely in the Jaguars' long-term plans, and the Jaguars' offense looks a lot differently without Evan Ingram. And, we haven't seen what it looks like without Evan Ingram because, he's actually been very, very healthy for the Jaguars. We've seen the offense without Christian Kirk. We know that is unfortunate, but yeah, we haven't really seen too much without Evan Ingram, but, it would definitely be different. And yeah, I edge these guys out over Kyle Brady just because I think that while Kyle Brady is a great player, we're building the greatest Jaguars all-time roster. And if I'm building an offense, I want Marcedes Lewis to be blocking and I want Evan Ingram to be receiving. So that's what I have going on there. Now, next up, we'll go left tackle. And this one goes without saying. Tony Boselli, the only Hall of Famer for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The very first pick for the Jaguars ever in franchise history. Not much longevity, only played for like 6 seasons, but he was the greatest Jaguar player of all time. And earlier when I mentioned, Fred Taylor is usually between 1 and 2. It's usually up between Tony Boselli and Fred Taylor on who is the best for the Jaguars. So, Tony Boselli, easy pick at left tackle for me. And shout out to him, man. He's still around Jacksonville he does Jaguars radio and has a house in Ponte Vedra, raised his kids over here. So he is, even though he was raised in Colorado, played football and played college football in California, he is now Duval till he dies. Okay, so he is going to hang around. Now, next up, we have the bookend for him, the other guy, and that is right tackle Leon Searcy. He's going to be playing a right tackle for the Jaguars. Unfortunately, as you see, we have a lot of older players, unfortunately, on this list, and that's just how it is. But, Leon Searcy, he was a free agent from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and quite frankly, we haven't had as good of a right tackle since him. Now, I do like the upside of an Anton Harrison. I could totally see Anton Harrison becoming better than a Leon Searcy. Now, I could potentially see the Jaguars actually maybe Anton Harrison starts to play left tackle. But yeah, for me on offense, I have a Leon Searcy going to play the right tackle for us. And I know some people over here, think my hot take of Trevor Lawrence at quarterback is, out here, and that's a bad take. But for me, guys, I'm going on upside. Okay, I'm going on in 2025 and 2024. Okay, we get all these players at their prime. I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence over Mark Brunell. I just think that while Mark Brunell is definitely more accomplished than Trevor Lawrence has only played for 3 years. Okay, so there's still so much to see from a Trevor Lawrence. Where I don't know, for me, I mean, this is my list. Okay, this is my list. So if you guys want to make your list and put Mark Brunell there, that is fine. But I know for me, I'm having Trevor Lawrence as my quarterback. And shout out to everybody in here, man. A bunch of people coming in the stream right now. Shout out to everybody here. Thanks for tuning into the Bleacher Report app. I know there's some people who agree and some people who disagree, but we're going to move on to complete the rest of the offensive line. Now, one guard was pretty easy, and that was, I have Vince Manawai. He was, of course, a guard for the Jaguars from 2003 to 2010. Was with the Jaguars for a couple of playoff runs. He was just a very, very good guard for the Jaguars, and he was just always solid there, and definitely moved people, definitely helped protect the quarterback. Samoan dude from Hawaii, so this is a very good guard for the Jaguars. Now, next up, this is one that was actually probably the toughest two spots for me to pick. Players were the other guard spot and the and the second safety for me when we go to the defense. So with that said, I kind of browsed through a bunch of the guards, and I'm going to go with actually guard Uche Nwaneri. Okay, now he had 92 starts for the Jaguars, kind of played through some down times for us, but and I think that was one thing that kind of makes his legacy a little bit less good, is just because he played on just some bad Jaguars teams. But he was a good guard when he played, but also this one is a little bit emotional, okay? Because Uche Nwaneri actually passed away very young. I believe he was 39 years old when he passed away in 2022, and he was actually in the Jaguars community a lot. He became like a Jaguars YouTuber, and he advocated a lot for the Jaguars. So Uche Nwaneri, shout out to him. I actually had a personal relationship with him. He came on my channel. I came on his channel. So this one, I think it edges up a little bit just because of the emotional aspect. But yeah, we have guard Uche Nwaneri for the other guard spot. Now, center, this one is easy. This one is chalk. We got to go with center Brad Meester. Okay, Brad Meester. He played 14 seasons for the Jaguars. Okay, that is the most of any receiver or most of any player ever. Okay, he had finished his career with 209 games played and started. So we started every single game that he played, and also 92 consecutive games started for the Jaguars. And he's a guy now that will show up, to Jaguars tailgates and drinks with all of us. Okay, so he is definitely one of the boys. Very relatable guy. Very, very cool. So that's good. Jack says no Brandon Linder for guard/center. I was actually, funny you say that, I was considering moving Brandon Linder to a guard and having him over Uche Nwaneri. I think the main thing that stopped me from that is that, Brandon Linder, he was a great center, just always hurt. Okay, and that just drove me nuts about him, because it's like, okay, we have this good center, but I mean, did he ever actually play a fully healthy season? And he ended his NFL career short because he couldn't stay healthy, and he was just racking up the injuries. Okay, so, but that was definitely on my mind to put him there. But I said, you know what? Let's go with a true guard. So that's why I went with Uche Nwaneri. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you guys, grade this list of the offense for me. Okay, do you guys agree with me on the starters? We have Trevor Lawrence, Fred Taylor, Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCarter, Mercedes Lewis, Evan Ingram, Tony Baselli, Leon Searcy, Vince Manawai, Uche Nwaneri, and Brad Meester. Now, one thing you notice is that there's only one current player on this list for the Jaguars, and that is Evan Ingram. Actually, two, I should say. Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram. I'm going to hope that, one day Anton Harrison replaces the right tackle. I'm going to hope that, heck, maybe a Brian Thomas Jr. replaces a Keenan McCardell. I have a feeling that Jimmy Smith will be on this list for a long, long time. I don't think there's a lot anybody can do to really supplant him. And then, yeah, let's hope that the guard positions get fixed up, and honestly, right now, there's nobody on the Jaguars roster that I really feel like are going to supplant, these guys. I mean, maybe Uche Waniri, and look, Brad Meester will be there for a long time. Okay, Mitch Morse signed a 2-year contract, 3-year contract with the Jaguars. Nothing he can do for that going off. Okay, so we definitely got some mixed reactions. Okay, we have Logan with an A, we have Chase with an F, we have Black with a B plus, Duval Jackson with a B plus, and Chase gave me 4 Fs. Okay, that's bringing down the GPA, but BK Lopez says A plus. All right, cool. So now we are going to move on to the defense. Okay, to the defense, and first off, I'm going to put these two together, okay? I'm not going to say individually because I feel like when you mention John Henderson, you got to mention Marcus Stroud at the same time. I mean, these are two of the best defensive tackles for the Jaguars ever, and they fed off of each other so perfectly, okay? Both these guys, they were able to stop the run. They were able to get pressure on the quarterback too. Some of those Jack Del Rio defenses were just scary when you look back on it. I mean, you guys all remember when Marcus Stroud was with John Henderson, was with Mike Peterson, was with, Rasheed Mathis. Those were some sick Jaguars teams. When I think of, of course, we all think about back at Saxonville in 2017, and that was a great defense. But I feel like when I think back on the Saxonville defense, I almost get a little bit sad because of like what could have been and how there was just no like long era of it. Okay, it was just like 2017. They were still decent in 2018, but the magic wasn't the same. When I think back on like the Marcus Stroud and John Henderson days, I feel like I have good thoughts about what happened there, even though they didn't go as far. It just felt like the longevity was a little bit longer, and John Henderson has stayed in the Jacksonville area. So yeah, this is this was cool, man. I love these units, and that's why I wanted to introduce these two guys together, two SEC players. Of course, Marcus Stroud from Georgia and John Henderson from University of Tennessee. So I had to throw these two doubles in there. Okay, so yeah, big number 98 and big number 99. Those guys were awesome. Now things get a little more complicated. Okay, first we'll start, and also this is a weird time for the NFL. Now I just went to a traditional 4-3 defense as we've known it for forever. But of course, defenses here in 2024 are different than maybe in 2004. So I just went with the traditional, 2 interior linemen and 2 exterior linemen. So first at defensive end, we have Tony Brackens. Okay. We got to put him in here because he is the franchise sack leader with 55 sacks. And he was just, whenever you have the franchise record for most sacks, you got to stay up there, okay? But of course, opposite of him, we have current Jaguar Joshua Hines Allen. Okay, look, guys, this video is not dated. Okay, this video is live right now because Joshua Hines Allen. Okay, I mentioned the new name, new him. Of course, he legally changed his name because he wanted a family name, but also between you and me, you already know that he's a player that expects to be in a Hall of Fame one day. And the other Josh Allen, the Bills quarterback, might be there too. So I think he wants his own name and legacy. So yeah. So with defensive ends, he has 45 sacks, Josh Allen, and look, 10 more sacks to be able to get to the franchise mark. But between Tony Brackens and Joshua Hines Allen, that's 100 sacks between the pair. Okay. And this is one where I do got to throw out a couple of honorable mentions. Got to throw in a Calais Campbell and a Joel Schmingy. Those are a couple. Even, Kevin Hardy is a guy that you can think about. But yeah, Calais Campbell, definitely an honorable mention. But I don't know. Would you guys, I would take Josh Allen over a Calais Campbell, but I know there might be some debate about maybe do you put Calais Campbell in front of a Tony Brackens? I know myself. Look, the Jaguars franchise started in 1995. I was born in 93, okay? So unfortunately, I wasn't able to, like, my Jaguars memories kind of begin with, like, the Marcus Stroud, John Henderson era, but, maybe there's some people that look at it a little bit differently. But yeah, we have Josh Allen over here. Joshua Hines Allen, I should say, at defensive end. All right, next up, we're going to go to outside linebackers. So the first outside linebacker I have will be Daryl Smith. Okay, Daryl Smith was a guy that was like really just historically like underrated for the Jaguars, and honestly a player that the Jaguars kind of let go too early because he actually had some good years with the Ravens after we gave him up. But between 2004 to 2012. He was a huge part of this defense, and he was a guy that could do it all. Okay, he was good against the run. He could rush the quarterback well too, and he was also really good in coverage. And I think that his skill would definitely still translate over to the current NFL, because I know some guys, like maybe some other people I'm about to mention on this list, might not have the same like impact if they were playing in today's NFL. But Darryl Smith is a guy that I think would still be great. Mark had them in 2 AFC championships, said R. Davis. Yes, he did. But for me, on my list, we're going with Trevor Lawrence. But hey, honestly, with who you take a quarterback, there's no wrong answer there. Okay. You guys could convince me on Mark Brunell. You guys could convince me on a Trevor Lawrence. But that's what's fun about sports. We can have debates. CJ said, yo, he's my dad. No, pretty sweet. Okay, next up. Next outside linebacker spot, we're going to go with Mike Peterson. Okay. Mike Peterson was the guy that was born in Gainesville, went to the University of Florida, and he played with the Jaguars from 2003 to 2008. Now, one thing that surprised me is I didn't really realize the longevity of his career. He only played 6 seasons with the Jaguars, but he played 14 seasons in total. Okay. Started off with the Colts, ended off with the Falcons, played for the Jaguars right in between. But he's a guy that completely loves the game of football. Right now, he coaches at the University of Florida. He was just a spark for the Jaguars, always brought the passion to the field. And Mike Peterson, also a guy that was introduced in the Jaguars top 25. So yeah, with Mike Peterson, I feel good about putting him as one of my outside linebackers. Even though he didn't really play outside linebacker, he was more of a middle linebacker. I just think that in my defense, there weren't that many elite. I mean, maybe we could I could have maybe put a Telvin Smith here, but with Darryl Smith playing the other spot, I think in my defense, we're going to go with a Mike Peterson there. But now at middle linebacker, I had to put Mike Peterson at outside linebacker because I don't know if Paul Posluszny would be able to play outside linebacker as well. And shout out to Paul Posluszny because, look, he was a guy that played for the wrong teams in the wrong era. Okay, he played for the Bills from 2007 to 2010, and look, he just flat out wasn't like. Let me see if I can put myself somewhere else because I don't want to hide the comments. Whatever. I'll leave myself down here. But he played for some historically terrible Bills teams from 2007 to 2010. Also from the Jags from 2011 to 2017. Only made one playoff, and that was in the final year of his career. And of course, he was a guy that retired a little bit early just because he never really had great speed, but his speed was really dropping off. And he was a guy that, he didn't want to just keep playing football when he wasn't at his 100%, which is totally understandable. But, Paul Posluszny, he was a great player for us. He was a sure tackler. He was always available for us. He was even a player that was pretty good in coverage as well. And he was just a leader. Okay. He was the exact kind of player that you want to, wear that C on your chest when it comes to being a captain for the Jaguars. So, with Paul Posluszny, he's going to be my middle linebacker. Now, next up, we go to cornerback. One of the greatest. I mean, we got to put Rasheed Mathis on this list. And look, guys, there's a reason why I included a Pittsburgh Steeler in this image because, kind of like what Derrick Henry is to the Jaguars. Derrick Henry was a Jaguar killer. Rasheed Mathis was a Pittsburgh Steeler killer. Okay, if you were to poll a bunch of Steelers fans and say, okay, what player killed our franchise all the time every time they played him? They were afraid of Rasheed Mathis, which is very, very hard for like a player like a cornerback to do. Usually like a quarterback kills a team or wide receiver or running back, but this guy was constantly getting interceptions, pick sixes. He just, he owned the Steelers. I mean, flat out, he owned the Steelers. So, with Rasheed Mathis, he was another player like Darryl Smith. They let him go way too early. Okay. So I'm going to have Rasheed Mathis here. He was a guy that actually grew up in Jacksonville. He played college football at Bethune-Cookman, HBCU down in Daytona. Second round pick in 2003, and he played with the Jaguars from 2003 to 2012. 32 interceptions and 132 passes defense. So here's this guy. And this next guy, a little bit emotional here because it just didn't end well, was Jalen Ramsey. I mean, we missed out on a lot of Jalen Ramsey, but just the kind of player that Jalen Ramsey is. I mean, I think by the end of his career, he's going to play for 6 or 7 different teams. It's because, he's a guy that once he gets bored of a place, he's probably going to one out. But there's no denying Jalen Ramsey's ability. First round pick in 2016, And unfortunately, it just didn't end well. And of course, can you blame him? I don't know. I'm not going to go into like who is at blame here because Tom Coughlin didn't handle the situation very well. Maybe the Cons didn't either, and Dave Caldwell didn't either. He just didn't feel like he was being treated right, but he got himself out of here and went to the Los Angeles Rams and won himself a ring, and now he's with the Dolphins. So we're gonna see him in 1 year, or in week one, I should say. But yeah, Jalen Ramsey, there's no denying his ability. If I'm starting up a roster, Jalen Ramsey is definitely one of my starting cornerbacks. Now, next up, this one was easy. Donovan Darius. I mean, he played for the Jaguars in 1998 through 2006. And look, he's a player that maybe I shouldn't put him on this list because he would not be able to play in the same style as today. I mean, he was a guy that was a hard hitter, all kinds of helmet-to-helmet hits. And the NFL would not take too kindly to him these days, okay? But yeah, he was a great player for the Jaguars, great in run defense, great spark plug, just great leader for the Jaguars. But man, he was definitely a head hunter, and he would definitely have to adjust his game a lot in today's NFL. And he's a guy, I think he played college football in Washington, but he actually still resides in Jacksonville. So you still see him around. I see him posted on social media. He's still around the area. Now, last up on my defense. Now, this one was actually really hard. Who would you guys put as your other safety? There really weren't that many free safeties for the Jaguars. So with that said, I do have a current player. I'm going to go Andre Cisco. Like, I know, he'll be going into his, fourth year of his NFL career. And we haven't seen like great, all that much stuff from him. And he didn't even start his rookie year. So he only really has 2 years of starting ability. But, I'm going through there. It was pretty much between him and a Tashawn Gibson because I liked Tashawn Gibson when he was playing with the Jaguars. But Andre Cisco, this is one of those, I like the upside here. So I'm going to put him at free safety. But let me know, who would you guys put as your other safety spot? Because this one was a little bit difficult for me. So yeah, here's a defense, and let me know if you guys like it. So last up, we're going to go into special teams, and I mean, this one's pretty easy. Got to go with kicker Josh Kobe. I mean, he was 11 seasons with the Jaguars, all-time point scorer with 1,022 points for the Jags, and just an overall great kicker. And he's a guy that still lives in Jacksonville too. Next up, I don't know. Let's go with Logan Cook. He's just kind of everything you want in a punter. I mean, he doesn't really make too many mistakes. He's also a guy that I want to see the Jaguars do more fakes with him because he was a former quarterback in high school. And if you see him on the field, like in pregame warmups, I mean, the guy kind of has a cannon. I mean, the guy can throw a nice football. So I think they did use him on one fake last year. I think it was against the Saints on Thursday Night Football. But yeah, he was a nice kicker for us, and he still is. So next up, we'll go with Reggie Barlow. I mean, not many great kick returner, punt returns for the Jaguars. I mean, maybe even this one, maybe you put in Maurice Jones-Drew here so you can maybe use him a little bit on offense. But if we're going strictly kick returner or punt returner, he had 2 punt returns for touchdowns, 1 kick return for a touchdown. Maybe you could put Jamal Agnew here, but that's up to you. So yeah, this will run out the special teams. We have these guys here, and on defense, we have this unit there. And we'll go back to look at the offense. And on offense, this is what we got. So let me know. Do you guys like my list? We'd love to hear from you guys. Of course, I think the main points of controversy would be quarterback, would also be maybe guard, maybe tight end as well. I think that safety was a tough position, and I think that maybe defensive end because Calais Campbell was left off this list. But also, huge thank you to you guys so much for joining today. This was a really, really fun thing to do, and I can't wait for the season. The season is right around the corner. We're going to have right here on the Bleach Report at training camp coverage pretty soon, which will lead into preseason, which means it'll lead us right into the best time of the year, and that is September through January, where we have football every single weekend for the remainder of the year. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to Bleach Report for having me, and go Jags.